A lot of positive things. I think number one, I just absolutely love the atmosphere at Pugul Ice Arena. The student body is everything that we thought it would be in here, and more. I love watching them. I love seeing how they dress up. I love their dancing. I love everything about it. It's just so, it's great and it's motivating. So it serves two purposes. And so number one, I take away that the atmosphere at Pugul Ice Arena, especially with the student section, is just top notch in the country. And I know I speak for every one of our players as well. We just absolutely love playing in front of them and playing in that atmosphere. So that's one takeaway. I think the second takeaway is really proud of how hard the guys worked during the season to improve as vastly as they have. And it shows statistically. It shows on the scoreboard. It shows statistically. But even just the eye test, the confidence that they had, and just being able to really play with teams and stick with them and win big games at the end was a real testament to the amount of work that they've done.
What was your favorite memory? I don't know if you've had time to kind of. What was your favorite memory? Favorite moment in the season so far?
I think my favorite moment was the first night walking out and actually looking to my right and seeing the student section, seeing what it looked like, and hearing them was phenomenal. That was awesome. That was something that I've been looking forward to for 4 years, and it was everything I expected.
Coach, when you look back on this season now in last couple days, what is the most encouraging thing for you going forward?
The amount of improvement that we've made in a number of areas, so that it's very encouraging that we were able to improve. That I think we're still going up, we're still improving, and that we lose a tremendous person in Mike McDonough, but we don't have significant other number losses, and I think that's encouraging. That if we continue to improve individually and as a team, that I think it's very safe to say that we should only expect us to get better.
Speaking of that, are you anticipating anyone else leaving, any redshirt juniors, anything like that?
You never know until the end of the academic year, so we don't anticipate it, but you never know.
As of right now, you're the only team in the country with 100% of its offense back. What does that make you think?
Look, I mean, it's a product of where we are right now. We're a second-year program, so that's really probably not very surprising. But as I said before, it gives you optimism that if we can continue to have a strong commitment towards ourselves as individuals, as athletes, and a strong commitment towards the team objectives, that we should continue to get better.
You were just pretty much a bounce or two away from being in the Big Ten championship, and then playing against a team that you just beat. I mean, so there was a decent chance that you guys could have made it to the tournament this season. I mean, are you? That's obviously encouraging for next season, but are you ahead of where you thought you would be?
Yeah, we're ahead. In terms of performance, we are. I think we spoke earlier that I know a lot of the talk was that we wouldn't have a chance to win a conference game this year, and I sort of thought we would, but I thought it might have been a stolen game, that we would be outshot 55-17 and come away with a 1-0 or 2-1 win. I thought that we might do something like that, maybe one or two times, but I don't think we expected us to really play blow for blow with a lot of these great programs, and I feel we had. I mean, we still have a long way to go, don't get me wrong, but I think that it's a great start. I thought that the guys proved that when they really play their game and perform at a high level, that they can go blow for blow with some of the best teams in the nation, and that was extremely encouraging to us.
And then you guys lost to Wisconsin, who went on to win. So is that nice that you lost to the winner, and are you maybe pulling for Wisconsin?
Well, we always pull for. We'll be, as hard fought as it was, and as strong as the competition is between any of the Big Ten schools. I certainly, we have great respect for both Minnesota and Wisconsin, and yeah, it would be nice to see them go all the way for sure. I think they both have the team to do that. So I guess this is the time of the year, if you're not in the tournament, we turn into fans of them. Yeah.
Matt, again, this was kind of the year of Matt Scoff being in that, getting all the wins and kind of the year of Scoff. What does that say about his growth since, even since the start of last season where he is now? What can you say about that?
Yeah, first of all, when you say it's the year of Scoff, that was absolutely earned. Nothing was given. And when they came in, I think that by no means did anybody ever assume that Matt Scoff was going to take the number one reins. It was a wide open competition, and he absolutely earned that. And I agree. I thought he had some tremendous performances, and especially down the stretch when you needed him most. I think the team really felt that they could count on him, and his results. Obviously, he had every win our program had, so it's safe. It's very you're very justified in saying that it was a year of scoff. I think you can say that, but I think it's really important to make the point that that certainly wasn't given to him at all. He had to earn every bit of it, and I think he did that both in his performances in the game and his attitude and performances in practice.
Do you think he and maybe even just the team in general was kind of playing its best hockey at the end of the season, and you wish maybe this season would be going a little longer?
We do. We do wish the season was going longer, mostly because we feel that we're really improving, and we've been improving every week, and we feel that. And you're right. I think that the team and Scoff, at the end of the year, we're both playing our best hockey. When your goaltender's playing your best hockey and your team's playing your best hockey, I think that the improvements are in huge leaps, and I think that's what you saw. So, as exhausting as it has been lately, I think everybody is so disappointed that it sort of stopped, because we were continuing to improve. So I think that's one of the challenges, to keep that attitude, not just sort of, okay, we had this season, now we're going to start from scratch next year. We can't have that attitude. We have to keep this going.
Is it safe to say that Matt will be your number one goalie for the start of next year, and where does that leave Eamon?
It is safe to say. I mean, I think that, again, because of the performances and results that he's had and what he's done in practice, I think it's very safe to say that. I don't think that's a surprise to anybody. Matt Scoff has earned that right to say, I'm the number one goalie coming in. Yep, that's safe to say. He's earned it. I heard your second question, so I did hear it. Again, it's very safe to say that Matt Scoff earned that he will be the number one goaltender coming in. Fair? Not fair? I think it leaves our other two goaltenders in a situation that they're in a competitive situation, and just like this year, they were all competing for a spot. They will be next year, although it is, again, I think very, very fair to say that Matt Scoff deserves to be the number one goalie coming in.
What's the plan like from here? I believe the dead period, you have a couple more weeks until that gets kicked into gear. How do you and the other coaches sort of budget your time while I'm sure getting some downtime as well?
Yeah, we want to actually get a lot done this week, so we will have a team meeting today, and then individual meetings on Wednesday and Thursday, and if any follow-up ones on Friday. And then we'll get into, they're having optionals this week in terms of lifting and on the ice. So the week after, next week, we'll start heavy into workouts, and then addressing individual improvements on the ice as well.
Coach, when you go back to October 11th to today, can you single anybody out as the most improved player?
Good question. Actually, does it have to be one? I mean, there's a few. It's a good question. So most improved players. Well, that's tough from day one, because we had very high expectations of a Casey Bailey, but what you saw from him the last half of the year, I think, was spectacular. It's very hard to say that our most valuable player from last year is a most improved, but if you look at, I think the most amazing statistic that I can see in our program right now is that David Glenn is a +3. That is amazing to me. We have excellent hockey players that are -20, that are great hockey players, and he is the only plus player on our team. And it's not like he played just a handful of games and happened to play against the right opponents, or that we hit him, that we would play him against the other team's fourth lines. In fact, it's all the very opposite. We put him out specifically against the team's most explosive offensive players. He plays in the worst situations. We put him on defensive zone faceoffs all the time. He really should be one of the lowest plus-minus players on the team because of the situations that he's put in, and somehow he is +3, our only plus player. I think that's just an incredible statistic. So I think he has to be up there for that. I think that our two we really relied upon late are two freshman defensemen in Mike Williamson and David Thompson, and they both improved greatly from the start, from October 11th, as you mentioned. I think Dylan Richard certainly near the end of the year, established himself as a go-to guy, whether it's on the power play or the penalty kill or a defensive zone face-off, where you saw the goal against Michigan in overtime. That was Dylan Richard, an offensive zone face-off. He's a guy who's very reliable. He has a great plus-minus as well, and I think he's made huge strides from the start of the year as well.
Going into next season, for the past 2 years, everything's been new. There's been, you were a new team on the Division I schedule 2 years ago now, new Pukul Ice Arena, new Big Ten. How do you kind of go into the next season and say, it's more about hockey now?
Yeah. It does make sense. We've talked about that as a staff, and I don't know how to verbalize it either, but we were looking forward to the fact that this year, and you don't want to say distractions because it sounds as a negative connotation, but there was a lot of other things going on in the program other than hockey, to move buildings, to have the opening night, to have the start of the Big Ten. There's a lot of other things that I don't want to say distractions because of the negative connotation, but a lot of different things going where easily could you take your mind and your focus off what you have to do on the ice. And so in that sense, we've talked about that as a coaching staff, and we're actually looking forward to just being about hockey right from the start, where we don't have a lot of other things that are diverting our attention.
Does that make your job easier?
Yeah, it does. I think part of being a coaching staff is you really try to get your team on the same page with whatever you're doing. It's not about who has the best system, or necessarily even to a certain degree the best players. It's how you get the players that you have and the system that you have working all together in one way. That's really what it's all about. And when there's certain other things that are diverting your attention from that, it can be challenging. And I think that's one thing that the coaching staff expects of ourselves that we'll do a better job of next year.
In that realm, the last 2 years have all been about building a foundation,
Yeah.
tamp down the expectations, that
Yeah.
sort of thing. Next year, do you anticipate that it's just basically focusing on being a winning program and being competitive?
Not quite yet. I think it's still really important that we still have a focus on building a foundation. We're not there yet. You don't just do it like this. There's a lot of work that we have to do, and we certainly improved in a lot of areas, but there are areas that we haven't really addressed strongly yet, that to be a championship team you have to, that we just didn't get to yet. So by no means do we feel, oh boy, we've done all the learning and now it's a matter of sharpening the saw and winning hockey games. We still have more work to do, so I think you can anticipate that we're always going to work on that foundation, but we certainly can refine a lot of areas that we expect to have, that the lessons are learned. We've got it, we better maintain it, and then we expect results from that.
Do you expect your style of play to change?
No, I don't. We expect to be better. We will have the same style of play, but we will be more consistent.
It's kind of bits and pieces of things we've already been asked, but I mean, for the most part, the record this year has been not overlooked, but it's not been necessarily how people have marked the program's ability to improve. Do you feel that at the same time, kind of what he was saying, that there's an urgency to get things going? I mean, people are excited about everything that's here, but at some point, at the end of the day, everybody wants to see wins.
Yeah, and we do too. I think that there's going to be, we will have higher expectations in terms of results. We still think that's very important to always be focused on the process and improvement, but there will be an expectation of results. So I think that's fair.
And scheduling is usually done pretty far in advance.
Yes.
For other sports, I guess the Cornell game is the only one that's official at this point. Do you change how you schedule since the obstacles are a little different now?
No, we don't change how we schedule, but Bill Downey always gives me crap because he tells me that I expect him to do scheduling based on the almanac from Back to the Future, because you do your scheduling 3 years in advance and you want to see where teams are. So if you look now, I think we're number 2 in strength of schedule, which is probably not the ideal situation for a first-year program. And if you look at it, I mean, it's really amazing, and because I tell him right back, well, you must have scheduled from the almanac of Back to the Future, because you look at Robert Morris, who we played 2 non-conference games, they won their conference. UMass Lowell, who we played 2 non-conference games against, won Hockey East. Union, who we played 2 non-conference games, won the ECAC. Who am I forgetting? Well, Boston College, so too, and they're number 2 in the nation. Who am I forgetting? And Wisconsin and Minnesota did all right too. So it was a really interesting situation, but that was done. It's not like we looked at the start of the year in September and said, oh, I think this is going to happen, let's schedule them. It is done well in advance. So.
But I mean, do you plan on sort of, I mean, you don't want to say that you're toning it down to say that the
No.
teams that you're playing are not better, but I mean, it's not necessarily a surprise that Boston College and Union
Correct.
get programs at the same time. So.
Correct. No, we're not really going to change our philosophy. We do want to continue to play at Consol Arena. I think that's great for our alumni in Pittsburgh, and possibly the same thing at Wells Fargo Arena. I think that's fantastic, and I'm not sure how much we have to say against the opponents there. And as we go forward, we want to continue to play top programs to get that experience. And so I don't think the philosophy is going to change. But that being said, it's not like in 3 years you can't look back and go, geez, you guys were second strength of schedule your first year, and now you're 12th. Why did why this slip? That's not a conscious thing. You can't really, unless you do have that almanac, you really can't plan that far ahead.
And do you think the goalie competition, I mean, you said that Scoffer is the number one at this point, as it makes sense. Do you feel like maybe part of this year got wasted in that competition in the sense that, PJ was maybe not originally part of that starting plans, maybe Eamon has to deal with some other things. I mean, do you feel like if you get a reset on that, maybe you can?
No, you use the word wasted, and I don't think wasted time. No, not at all. You can't. I think you have to go through it. You really have to go through that process. There was no guarantee that Scoffer was going to do what he did. I'm very happy to see it, and I'm not surprised. Everybody in this room, I think, has seen him play huge games and be a tremendous teammate and have extremely high work ethic and practice. So I don't think anybody's surprised, but it wasn't a given. He certainly very deservedly came out on top, but we did have to go through the process with that. And I know what you're saying. I know that I mean, if I'm reading between the lines, it's almost like, well, if we figured this out earlier, maybe we would have more successful results.
Well, just that, I mean, it can be hard when you're dealing with maybe some other things that are going on, and certainly PJ's been good, but maybe not. He was never necessarily the plan to be the number one guy at any given point. That has just sort of been maybe more things you've had to deal with than maybe you planned.
It's true, but if you look at PJ's situation, if in his starts he has a 311 goals against and a 910 save percentage, that's pretty darn good. So he can make a case as to why we should spend more time on PJ, and he's right. So it's a different position. We have one net, and we have three great goaltenders, and I hear what you're saying, and I think the plan for next year is not to necessarily have a wide open competition right away, because you do have to play. Those points are we talked about it before, that the expectations for results might be a little bit changed and elevated, and because of that, you want to make sure you're doing all you can to play your best guy more often, and that's probably going to be the focal point. But we do have to go through that. I can't look back and say, geez, we should have done that.
Maybe wait.
I know Keith and Matt kind of handle it during the season at least, but what type of emphasis do you put on recruiting now that it's the off season? What type of limitations do you have against NCAA rules from visiting?
Yeah, the limitations in hockey, we have very few dead periods. So really, hockey is a 12-month recruiting period, and it's tough. It's a lot of coaches are very disappointed with where recruiting has gone in hockey. Not only the amount of summer tournaments and showcases and everything that you have to go to, but the age of where we are recruiting right now. So it's a very difficult thing. And the NCAA regulations that you talked about are that you're allowed 3 coaches that can recruit. So when you said, is there more of an emphasis on recruiting? The answer is no. There's always an extremely high emphasis on recruiting, extremely high. We had from this week included, and the week going into it. I mean, we do not stop recruiting at any point. It's always the number one priority to look ahead at the future, take care of the program, and both Coach Fisher and Coach Lindsay do a tremendous job at that. Now that the season's over, I'll probably be a little more physically involved, but all 3 of us it's always on the forefront, always in hockey.
I know it kind of takes us to that area similar to where we were earlier this year with the officials, where you kind of gave your opinion but didn't want to give too much. But what would you change in terms of the recruiting rules if you could? Do you think sophomores too early? Because I know that's sort of been one of the things bandied about. Number one, the lack of dead periods. I think there's 3. And then other than that, I think you can recruit sophomore and freshman and probably even deeper than that. What would you change?
What would I change? Well, right now you're seeing verbal commitments of hockey recruits as early as grade 7. I think that's ridiculous. Personally, I just think it's ridiculous. And the fact that in hockey is different, which is different in other sports. Other sports have verbal commitments that early, but it's not against the ethics to still recruit that individual. So someone from another sport can verbally commit to school X and school Y can still recruit them. And in hockey, we have an ethics that once there's a verbal commitment that the other schools lay off, and which I think there's very good reason for that. But to do that is just because one school has a grade 7 young boy commit to their school I don't agree with it that all other schools are then off. And the reason I feel that way is I just don't feel it's good for the student athlete. I think that there's what is grade 7? Is that 13? I don't even know. I mean, as a 13-year-old, I think back to I liked Spider-Man at 13. I mean, I didn't know what school I wanted to go to, and I think our rules are not good for the student athlete.
Do you think that ethics is respected? Because in a lot of other sports, they sort of have that ethics rule, that ethics sort of, it's almost the unwritten rule that no one actually follows. Do you think it's more so now?
Yeah, I do, because of it's a smaller governing body that get together and sort of in its body there's sort of checks and balances to follow that. So I do think it's more what's the word that you use, followed or more respected. I can't remember what word you use, but yes, I do think it's more so in hockey. But I do think, there has to be a change eventually, because I remember when I got into college, I remember one of the coaches talking about how ridiculous it was that someone committed someone in grade 11, and that was ridiculous. And so everybody at the time thought that was just an aberration, that won't happen again. And then someone was grade 10, and that was ridiculous. And then someone was grade 9, and now we're grade 7. So when is it going to stop? I mean, it's going to stop at the delivery room, and it's going to be too late. So I think something's going to happen along the way that will change that.
You've had a year now to sort of get the feel for this building and see if it's set up and tuned and whatnot to best suit your needs. Are there any changes you guys would like to make, or any sort of little tweaks?
We love Pugul Ice Arena. I mean, it's fantastic. I cannot complain one little shred about this building. It's fantastic.
You mentioned several minutes ago that there were some areas that, as a team, you guys didn't get to
Mhm.
explore. What
Yep.
were they, and what did you learn about those areas from the teams, the proven teams that are good in those areas?
Yeah, there's more time spent on special teams, for instance. I mean, 5-on-3s, 4-on-3s, things like that don't happen often, that neutral zone face-off plays that I don't believe are the meat of what makes a good team at all. But at times, if you have veteran players and that have been around, and you can go over that, you don't often spend a lot of time, because every week you never end up a week of preparation saying, oh geez, we're done, what are we going to do now? You never. I mean, you're always at the end, Thursday practice, you're always sort of checking off, well, geez, we don't want to spend too much time. We want to make sure they're fresh, but we have to address these 4 or 5 things. We have to eliminate one. What are we going to do? So it's not like you never have time where you're just looking for things to fill up your time. There are certain areas that we didn't address at all. And in the future, when our foundation is built really strongly on the systems that we have and our objectives, that you can now add on. So that's what I meant by that.
Are you looking forward to that time? Next year when you don't have to spend time on fundamentals?
I'm looking forward to spending time on that, because I really think that's the meat of how your team performs. Hockey is different in the fact that it's a basketball coach once explained to me after he watched it. He said, "Oh, I get it now." He said, hockey is just one big transition, because he looks at it coaching that you sort of have a specific. You get the ball, you go down on the other side, and you call a play, and you run that play. And then they do the same on you, and obviously it would be like coaching a team that is constantly gets a long rebound and runs the other way. And how do you coach that team to perform in the best manner? So it's not a matter of necessarily setting X's and O's. It's a matter of getting everybody to play on the same page in that situation. So our hockey coaches, they earn their keep during practice, and you really have to squeeze out every minute. Every minute you have to reinforce your philosophy and what you're doing, and that's what I think really makes a good hockey team. So you will never not look forward to the fundamentals of it. I think that's always the most important part.
What was the one loss that really, stung or hurt this season?
Well, Wisconsin here with 20 seconds to go in overtime, I think really stung. Because I thought we played an excellent game, and then we had I think we really showed some immaturity late in the game, and was tough because that was something that that was a tough one. I think we all want that one back. I think we probably learned a very good lesson from it, but it was something that I didn't think we would have to learn that late in the season. That one stung. And, you know, the wrong two guys to have the puck. I mean, I think it was Cordelius and Zangerle, who I think had a pretty good tournament in the Big Ten. So, I mean, those were the wrong guys to have the puck, and they made us pay, and a great lesson, but a tough one to swallow.
Time for a couple more.
You're talking about some of the regulations and stuff like that as far as recruiting. I mean, in comparison to college hockey, I mean, you guys are recruiting all of North America, Canada, and
Correct.
Places I've never heard of. And you know, football has got 9 different sections of Pennsylvania marked out with just for assistants. I mean, you guys start practice a week before the season starts. You know, football's over there doing push-ups now. Like, do you wish that the sport as a whole, not necessarily to compare the two, but you had more of this leeway? I mean, do you feel like it almost hurts the sport, the fact that you guys can't start until a week before, only 3 of you can be out there and cover half the globe to recruit?
Yeah, I do. I think, and that's one of the, I think a lot of the coaches are very optimistic about the Big Ten Conference. The reason being is now we really have a seat at the table. Because hockey, you know, the CCHA wasn't an NCAA conference. The WCHA was an NCAA conference. The Big Ten is. So we actually have a seat at the table, and we've seen some very positive strides with regulations already because of that. So we are hopeful that as hockey has more of a seat at the table, that some of their idiosyncrasies or some of the individual challenges of hockey are addressed through the Big Ten Conference. And yeah, we're optimistic that a lot of those things will be looked at and changes will be made for the betterment of it. But yeah, we feel that everything that you just verbalized is exactly how we feel. We have, you know, we're recruiting all year long. Someone's got to be here. So you have 2 guys going everywhere from, you know, Scandinavia to California to all over the place. Yeah, to Moose Jaw, and yeah.
Take one more.
Speaking of the places you never heard of.
I've heard of California.
Yeah. Moose-
You've been here before with Alaska, with Princeton. In terms of the whole process, is this where you want it to be? And how happy are you that you are where you are with this program?
Happy are where we are in the program, or happy here at Penn State?
Where you are in the program.
Where we are in the program, being the second year, I was thrilled. I remember, just for reference sake, I remember when my first job in the NCAA was with Alaska, and one of the statistics that they told me when I came in is that they were 0-21-1 against Michigan up to that point. And so for us now to be 3-2 against Michigan is a pretty good step. So I'm very happy with where we are in the program. I think we have tremendous people, both as student athletes and as their staff. I can't speak enough about the staff of our sports info director, our marketing our director. We have our strength coach, our athletic trainer. I mean, Penn State attracts great student athletes, and it attracts great people in administration. In the administration, that's something I really love. So that's something I'm very happy about as well.